Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A decision made just within the hour at a Brown County committee meeting about potential changes to the Neville Public Museum, dealing with concerns about funding the museum into the future.
Two supervisors of the Brown County Board want the museum governing board and staff to feature more interactive children's exhibits to make the museum more profitable. This is being referred back to the Neville Museum for them to look at and will be back on the agenda this January. New at 6, Taylor Zebel is live outside the Neville Public Museum where she talked to one of those supervisors. Taylor.
Jason, the Education and Recreation Committee meeting started just about an hour ago where two supervisors put a plan out there to help the museum make more money. That would mean taking less financial support from Brown County, ultimately saving taxpayers' dollars. Brown County owns the Neville Public Museum and provides about $1 million in funding per year. Dixon Wolf, along with Supervisor Devin Coonan, are backing this plan that would include a children's museum style model with interactive exhibits. Wolf tells me attendance has been stagnant, and this solution would help get more people through the door.
I'd like to see more younger children, more parents and grandparents brought into the Neville to experience it in its entirety. I obviously want to preserve what's already at the Neville, but I think that adding more exhibits that are interactive for younger children would support it in the long run.
Tony Burnett, executive director of the Children's Museum of Green Bay, posting on Facebook saying in part, quote, "The conversation we should be having is not about duplication or replacement, but about how best to support and strengthen the unique missions of all of Brown County's cultural institutions," end quote. The Neville Public Museum Foundation declined to comment prior to the meeting. Reporting live in Green Bay, Taylor Zebel, Action 2 News.